Hello, welcome to CNS Organics, Aquaponics. Everything is going absolutely crazy. I want to do an update. I've done an update on the hoop house, but I haven't done an update on our aquaponics systems. So I want to let you know, yeah, we got koi over in this fish tank. If I back up around, there's some koi and some goldfish down in this tank. Starting off, I went with feeder goldfish. The feeder goldfish, they're really cheap. I think they were 30 cents each or something. They do well. I've got some in the fish tanks on the end that you'll see, hopefully, if they come to the surface, that are probably 10 or 12 inches long. So just because they're a very cheap fish doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to perform for you. I wanted to touch base on, I guess, kind of a situation I've run into. If you look at, most of this is tomato plants. Yes, of course, there's some okra, there's some jalapenos down there, there's that flag. It's, I think, an iris. Wanted to reflect on something real quick. If you look at a whole lot of dead leaves, they call it chlorosis. It's where the leaves die. Pardon me. There is a lot of dead leaves, but all the new growth, even like this guy, all the new growth is doing great. So I started doing some research and I was like, what the heck is going on? Do I have enough nutrients? What is it that's going on? And as you can see, there's a lot of leaves that are dying. We still have the tomato growth. We still have jalapenos growing good. We have a lot of production on the fruit side, on the tomatoes and everything else. I mean, you look back in there, there's a couple I picked yesterday, some down in there, and all those dead leaves. And what I've come to realize is that if I can back up good, if you look at all that vegetation, that is a whole lot of vegetation. It's a whole lot of plants. And each one of those plants is really big. So I feed my fish once a day. And as you can see, they're even like leaning over, laying down, even though I've like tied up and everything else. And what it is that my fish tank, okay, there's, I guess, about 2 dozen fish in there, which is a bunch for the size of tank it is. And they're growing and they're doing good and everything else. I feed them once a day. And this 55-gallon drum, feeding them once a day with the amount of fish, they're not supplying enough nutrition or nutrients to all this vegetation. So I have to do one of two things. I either have to get a bigger fish tank with more fish, a higher fish stocking density, and feed them more than once a day, or I have to cut way down on the amount of vegetation. All this vegetation, it pulls the nutrients out, and it also has it takes up a lot of the, what they call transpiration. It takes up a lot of the water. It uses the water for the plants. So my sump tank I keep eyes on on how full it is and how often I've got to fill it up. And as I've noticed that these plants have just really just gotten way out of control. We haven't had any classes for a few weeks, so I've been concentrating on the hoop house instead of so much in here. But I've noticed that they're using a lot more water. And I've noticed that in the level of water in the sump tank. And so I think I'm gonna have to like really trim this stuff back really heavily because I really don't have the room in here for a larger fish tank. But anyways, that's one of those things that you'll come across maybe a year into it or so, is that your plants, they're gonna grow much faster than if they were in a regular dirt garden. They're gonna grow a lot faster. And by growing faster, let me see if I can, these two little guys here, you got a little one there and a little one here. About 3 days ago, no, maybe 4 days ago. 4 days ago was half the size. They have grown that quick. A week ago, I'm sorry about moving around so much. A week ago, this plant here, right here, okay, this little branch was only maybe about 2 inches tall. And now it comes all the way up and all the way up here. Okay. So this stuff is growing super fast. But what has happened is that now there's not enough nutrients in the system. I don't add anything at all. It's only the fish and the fish food. But there's not enough nutrients to keep all this mess enough nutrition for them to grow well. So I've run into that, and I wanted to let everybody know. And that's kind of an issue. If you just let your plants grow wild and go crazy, and you'll notice dead leaves, it's like, man, I've got a problem. I've got an iron deficiency or potassium or this or that. No, everything's there. Everything's there and everything's good. It's just, they're just not enough. I mean, some of these plants are, if I would have stretched them out, because they loop over and then down and then back through and everything else, I stretched them out maybe 15 or 18 foot long. Same goes with the deep water culture. So yeah, we've got some kale here on the end. The kale is actually starting to do better now than it was earlier when I had all the lettuce. The Swiss chard, I have really cut way back because it was just unbelievable. I mean, it was actually, and actually you can kind of see here, if I can get in there, it's so heavy that it's starting to sink the styrofoam raft, the styrofoam float. So I really did a lot of trimming on it, and I've noticed that it's done better since. These are a bunch of babies. These are cauliflower. We put these in. I believe that we're going to transplant a few of them from here. We're going to leave some in here. These here are beans. And I put some strings up, and at first, if you look real close on the leaf, that's kind of the first stages of not getting enough nutrition. This leaf's probably a better idea of not getting enough nutrition. And I think the reason why is because of all of this down here is just really taking up all the nutrition. So I need to either cut back on the plants a little bit, or I need to add more fish and feed more than once a day, or have a bigger fish tank 55 gallons is not really that big, but I have a bigger fish tank so that I could have more fish and have plenty of room and everything else. This one here, I haven't noticed as much, but I have noticed the water dropping more than it did in the past. So I've had to add a little bit of water because of what the plants are taking up. A couple other notes. Yeah, you saw the fish tank down there and that one down there. These are going to be hydroponics, not aquaponics, but hydroponic systems here. And it's going to be for some small stuff, some cilantro, some herbs, those type of things. My wife still has quite a bit in here, but she's been moving stuff out. I also wanted to talk about, actually I'll go through this other end. I wanted to talk about a couple of things. That's the hoop house. Not real crazy about the plastic that we got, but it is it's doing its job, it's doing well. And if we go over this way, my wife just done this today, and we had picked up a while back, several months ago, all these little black plastic tubs. And I think they're made for mixing concrete or mortar or something like that. And anyways, we had a bunch of them. We probably had like 20 of them. So she put, I guess it's 9 of these guys down. And she put plastic down in there and drilled some holes for it to drain and everything else. She did a great job. She worked her tail off today. So I did want to mention that. We're going to have a variety of things in these. Each one, I think that she's kind of mapped out that each one's going to have certain things in it. Try not to blind you. Here is the hoop house. Doors are open. It was hot today, and even with both doors open, it's still warmer in here. This is going to be the deep water culture bed. There'll be another deep water culture bed in the middle, and then an ebb and flow down this side. Over here, kind of where my tools are and all that kind of stuff, is going to be a NFT system I'll end up setting up. But while I was out here, I wanted to touch base on something. I thought it was pretty cool. What it is we're digging this hole. I say I'm digging this hole, and the first probably 10 or 12 inches, depending on where it was in there, was good black nutritious dirt. I mean, it was good stuff, and we found tons and tons and tons of worms. I mean, we probably found, I don't know, if I had to guess, probably like 500 or 600 worms. And so we was picking them out, putting them in a bucket, taking the dirt, going and dumping it, and we was digging. And I was like, we need to do vermiculture. The waste solids from the fish can go to the worms. The worms can produce a tea, and also worm castings, which can be sold and can be very profitable. But also, it can the tea itself, my wife will be able to use in her dirt farming. So after about a foot or so, I ran into like basically solid limestone rock. I've been having to use that bar over there to chip it up, and I chip a little bit here and there. I'm not gonna just jump in it and spend a whole day of just beating myself up doing that. We are gonna check out the vermiculture worm bed here in a moment. I wanted to come around this way. These tomato plants are actually clippings from about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, off of our aquaponics system. And all I did was I had to go and trim up, and I cut a bunch of the arms or the branches off, and she put them out here in this little half 85 gallon barrel, and they've taken root and they're starting to grow. This one down here is not in the best looking shape, but it actually has some tomatoes on it. There's actually tomatoes being produced. We'll walk down this way. I don't want this to be too awful long. We have, this is another little deal I did last year, but anyways, she planted flaxseed and chia seed. And all this tall stuff, I believe, from what she told me, is the flaxseed, and they'll all come up and have a whole bunch of little flowers, bringing the dragonflies, which will help with mosquitoes, bringing the bees and the pollinators and everything else to help pollinate our outdoor plants. This, believe it or not, is a pecan tree. We do have a pecan tree in the backyard, and in some of our compost bins and what have you, it is sprouted out. And when we pulled them out and looked at them, they're attached to a pecan. And so at some point, we'll have some extra pecan trees to be able to give to people or sell. Well, I was doing potatoes, the same here. As you can see, the potatoes and the vegetation on top. I think she's looking at adding a little bit of dirt to cover up the tops of them, but they took off like crazy. The actual type of potato, I'm not sure. She's got one type there, I believe the same or another type here. Let's see, she's got some more down there. That's some basil and pansies, and she's got all kinds of stuff going on, some onions and whatnot, and some more tomatoes, or potatoes, I'm sorry, back there. Don't mean for this to be too long. Let me see if I can get across the yard here. That was a beautiful day today. We've been trying to work outside when we can with all this shutdown stuff. Oh yeah, by the way, this greenhouse, not the big hoop house, but I added siding down this end, and so she was able to move some stuff over, and now we don't have to rely on the plastic keeping the wind and rain and everything out. So I did add that the other day. Let's see, here was our original garden we've had for over 10 years, and she has, I couldn't even tell you, tons of stuff. Onions and tomatoes, and there's looks like some rosemary over there, and some foxtail fern, and some succulents, and some pansies, and just all kinds of stuff. Back on this side, these are the raised beds that I'd built for her last year. This one here actually had a hoop on it part of the winter. To me, it looks like a bunch of weeds, but it's actually wildflowers. You can see the little flowers. They're there, they're all over the place. There's some pretty little blue ones. This has kind of been the catch-all. Here's some more of those arms, or those branches off of the tomato plants out of the aquaponics system that she put in, and they're doing well. They're growing. The leaves look pretty decent. I mean, look at that guy there. Looks pretty good. Some more of those flags down there, some more tomatoes. So this is kind of a catch-all is what my wife calls it. There's tons of stuff in there. I'm not even sure what all she has going on. But this is what I wanted to touch on before I get off of here, is that I've got a little 5-gallon bucket. There's actually holes drilled in the bottom of this guy. It's a big plastic tote, if you will. This one here is considerably larger than what you would find. And actually, I just seen a drop or two. There's actually a little bit of liquid in there, and it's starting to come through, which is great. So anyways, let me open this guy up real quick. I'm gonna grab this and open this up. And we have never done worms before. We are trying to do it to see how it works. All those worms that we had dug up for the hole in the big hoop house for our sump tank, all those like 500-600 worms, we put those guys down in here. and I've been watching a lot of videos. I've been trying to figure out how to do this. I actually drilled, well, you can see it over here because of the sun. I drilled holes all around the top for ventilation. Down on this end, I actually drilled holes so that all the liquid can drain down into this bucket. And we've actually gotten, I don't know, in that 5-gallon bucket, probably like 4 inches of liquid. And that's supposed to be the prime time fertilizer for all that garden stuff. So we've got newspaper in here. There's some lettuce, or some celery that wasn't any good. We have basically, let's see if I can find a couple of worms. Oh yeah, look at that. I don't know if y'all can see that, but you see all those worms? These guys are eating up all of our table scraps. There you go, look at that. Didn't even take me that long. Our table scraps, some cardboard, there's some bananas going bad. These guys are just loving it. I don't know how well it's gonna do in the middle of summer here in Texas just because of how hot everything is. But I did put in some manure. I'm gonna probably do a video on actually how I got the system set up, and I'll probably keep tabs as far as doing videos so that everybody knows what I've done and if it worked and if it didn't work. It's a new thing for me, is what they call vermiculture. It's having a worm farm and letting the worms consume and turn a lot of stuff that would be in the trash into compost. And at the same time, you get the worm tea, and you can use it as a fertilizer, and then the compost itself with the worm castings, you can market it, you can sell it, or you can also use it yourself. This guy here is not a real big system. I think the tote itself cost me maybe 40 bucks, and then the center blocks in a bucket. I had to buy a piece of plywood and cut the top. I went ahead and painted it white to kind of reflect some of the light and to kind of protect the wood. So that's kind of what's going on here at CNS Organics. There's some of the beautiful little flowers, and she's got all kinds of stuff in here. Look at that beautiful little plant there. But anyways, this is Steve from CNS Organics. I was wanting to say hi and get a kind of do an update on the aquaponics system and the problems I had, and then kind of touch base on a lot of other things, just so that you all kind of knew what was going on here at CNS Organics. So please like, subscribe, share, leave me some comments, let me know. Thanks guys, here from Texas.